Welcome to this special edition of Town News produced by the Advanced Reporting and UNI TV classes. Our topic today is city elections. Cedar Falls went to bed on Tuesday night with a newly elected mayor. I'm Carly Hansen.
And I'm Zane Phillips. Jim Brown, a 47-year-old businessman, school board member, and father of two, has been elected as the 45th mayor of Cedar Falls. He will be sworn into office on December 21st.
Right now, from the University of Northern Iowa, this is UNI TV News.
But the road to City Hall wasn't easy. Following the November 3rd election, John Cruz decided to bow out of the race and retire. In the runoff election on December 1st, Jim Brown received 75% of the vote, garnering 3,541 votes, defeating Dave Halterman's write-in campaign, which received 988 votes out of the total 1,024 write-in votes.
Even Mayor Cruz, who was not actively campaigning and endorsed Jim Brown after announcing his decision to retire, received 3% of the vote with 143 votes. It was a race that engaged the city with a high voter turnout. We had reporters on the scene at Pump House in Cedar Falls, where Jim Brown's family and friends celebrated for the second time. Here's what it was like. On December 1st, the Cedar Falls mayoral election finally came to a close as Jim Brown claimed the seat as the city's new mayor. Brown was elected after a runoff where he received nearly 3,600 votes, giving him the outright advantage over write-in opponent Dave Halterman. Halterman received just over 1,000 votes. Former Mayor John Cruz received 143 votes after announcing his retirement. Cruz spent 30 years as mayor. Brown awaited the results at Pump House in downtown Cedar Falls. Our reporters were on site and caught up with the new mayor and a few of his fellow supporters.
Still a little anxious. I have a lot more confident friends, thinking it's going to be a done deal, but I'm still very cautiously optimistic about it. We do have a good city staff. I'll be able to rely on them heavily for the legacy expertise that they have in terms of what's happened in the past, and then get some different insight from various individuals that can help me sort through different decisions and different things I ran on that hopefully I can implement.
This has been part of his lifelong desire to be in politics, and so he started out with the school board and went through that process a few times, and so to me it seemed like a natural progression, and it's nice that he's been part of this community for so long and has been hands-on in the community. So my response was, what took you so long?
He does listen well. So I think as far as, I don't like the word agenda, but I do know that as part of leadership, you need to be able to listen to other people, and I know that he will do that very well.
He's a man of integrity, and because I know his heart, we know his heart. He conducts himself well in public. He's dreamed about it for a long time. Well, I think it's a little bit stressful for him. He has another job, and he actually on a weekly basis talks to people all over the world with Pearson. I mean, he has conference calls in China and conference calls. He traveled to China. He traveled to the United Kingdom, to London. He's traveled all over the world with Pearson. Well, you don't quit your job because you're running for mayor of Cedar Falls. So he's had to kind of do both. And so he's walked door to door to door to door to door to try and get support from people, but still doing his job.
Joined by his wife and two daughters, Jim Brown gave thanks to his supporters and his campaign running mates.
Iowa, James P. Brown, better known as Jim.
I'm not going to be here long, thanks to this family here. I think I at least underestimated the effort within the four walls of Mocker Road, but they've been really champs there as far as their support. So it's been great. They've hung tough. Again, my co-chairs, Irvin Levada Dennis, they were really my sounding board. They kept my head on straight. They kept my belly full of food from time to time, and even a glass of wine was shared. So it's just wonderful to be able to have that sort of ability to go approach them that way. The runoffs are very strange. I have to tell you, it's really two different campaigns that were run here. And I do want to give a shout out to our current mayor, John Cruz, who's been very gracious.
Brown will begin his term on January 1st of this coming year.
That was an exciting night and a hard-earned celebration. We have newly elected Mayor Jim Brown here with us today. Let's hear from our panelists and the mayor himself.
Thank you, Carly. All of us have covered this story, and we're happy to be among the first to tell you congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'm joined here by my colleagues Katie Grassi, Drew Curtis, and Luda Grigorchuk. So, Mayor Brown kind of rolls off the tongue. New to you, new to us. How does it sound?
It sounds good, but it is mayor-elect. December 31st, I get sworn in, and then I take over 1st of January. But I do appreciate the mayor itself. It does sound pretty good.
I agree.
Mr. Brown, what is the first initiative you're looking to spearhead as mayor?
Well, I know the learning curve will be vast. There's a lot of experience at the city. It's a large entity in and of itself. If you compare it to a corporation, a lot of money flows through in and out, a lot of people employed in the city. I think there's some ideas from myself in terms of talking to the right staff and implementing my business development focus that I brought upon the campaign the last 10 months. And then there's just different ways I can hopefully implement some different ideas towards communication with the city council, and how the council meetings are run. So that's an early sketch of what I thought of so far. But really, is to get in there and talk to folks, introduce myself, and see what's going on, I guess, initially.
It sounds like you're rolling up your sleeves and going to get started right away. I sat down with City Administrator Dick McAllister last week and talked to him about how the city is going to function, you know, with two of its top officials not being in those positions anymore and you stepping in. I was just curious, and you know what I found is that he's kind of stepping away from a lot of big projects, University Avenue, Green Hill Road, Sartori Hospital. Mm-hmm. How do you plan to kind of tackle those? Do you feel overwhelmed at all with those projects?
It's a great question. Dick has been a part of a lot of what's happened in the city, I guess behind the scenes. And of course, John in front of it with that legacy knowledge that he has. So together, I guess I haven't done the math, but that might be 70, 80 years of combined experience they have. I don't think Dick is going anywhere. I don't think John's going anywhere, and I have their phone numbers. So they can run, but they can't hide. But then I know that there's some plans in terms of the turnover and transition with folks that they moved up through the ranks. I believe Ron Gaines now is going to be the city administrator, and some other folks underneath that. And they have some good working knowledge. It's not as if they work in a vacuum. So if they're getting something done in one area, most of the other areas of the city, the other administrative offices, know what's going on in terms of the details. So yeah, John's been very gracious. Mayor John Cruz has been very gracious in making sure that I'm to be introduced to various committees. The budget, a lot of those heavy lifting things that I know will take me a while to learn.
So you mentioned Ron Gaines, the interim city administrator. He's new, and then we have a new council member, Tom Blanford, who is part of the city council. Mm-hmm. How do you plan to build and maintain a relationship with the city council through your time as mayor? Communication, it's crucial. And it's great to be amongst your program here, because I know that's the emphasis is communication. So I don't think there's any special secret. I don't have any special formula to get that done, but I think sitting down one-on-one and communicating over the phone, in person, whatever the case might be, that relationship part is 80–90% of anything we do in life. So I'll be able to glean what the ideas are they have, and not just ideas in terms of the city, but also in terms of how they like to implement and process. I was in communication quite a bit with Councilman Blanford, great young guy, and he'll hopefully forgives me for calling him young, but good guy. So we've already spoken on a number of different things, and not issues, but just different items coming up, and it's going to be, I think, a great working relationship with both those individuals. Mm-hmm.
Anton, you sat down with a few of the city council members to get their input on how Cedar Falls will proceed with the new members. What was that like? It was good. They had a lot to say. They all kind of were on the same page with each other, which is great to hear for a city council. I mean, they knew what they wanted and they knew what each other wanted, so it was good to hear what they had to say. And actually, I recorded it, so let's take a look.
I think it'll be a really exciting time for the city and for everyone involved. Anytime you talk about an organizational shift that's going to be new after 40 years, it's going to be a change, and there's definitely going to be a learning curve to that.
For the most part, the City Council has had a very thoughtful succession plan, too, for all key staff positions. And so I do believe that we'll have a pretty good continuity through it all. and that's just in part because of how cities operate too. I mean, we're always planning 1 to 5 years in advance. In fact, some of our visionary stuff could be 10 to 20 years in advance. And so we try to stay on the cutting edge, or at least right behind it, to move our city forward.
You know, Mr. McAllister has a credible amount of institutional knowledge. Being that he's been there the whole time, he knows the history on everything. He can tell you why something is the way it is. So to lose that will definitely, it will be difficult at first. You know, Ron is very knowledgeable. He just hasn't been there as long as Dick. I mean, it just is the way it goes. I think he's going to do a very good job. He's very willing to step up, to ask questions, and I think he has a great relationship with the existing council. I think he'll work very well with the new mayor. You know, I'm really looking forward to working with Jim. I think he's going to be a fantastic mayor. He's never really done anything like this before, so it'll be different for him as well. But I think it will be good to have sort of all of that newness, I guess, at once. It'll really allow, I think, that to maximize its potential when you're talking about that big of a difference.
So this election was truly a historic moment for Cedar Falls. And how do you plan to keep the continuity of the governance in Cedar Falls?
Well, it's much like they mentioned there on that clip. Councilman Tiber indicated all the planning that goes involved with that. And I might be a little bit naive on how many meetings I'm getting prepared to go to and learn about. But I do know that those institutional plans are out, short-term, long-term, and then even extensively. So I think to be a part of those plans, give my input as I have my own leadership style, as I indicated during the entire election campaign. With full knowledge that there'll be, I'm sure, twists and turns in the road of what I wasn't expecting.
Mr. Brown, watching the city council meetings, one would get the impression that a lot of members of the public come to air their grievances, and on occasion there's been quite a bit of animosity, and some people feel that they are being censored and shut out of the public discourse. How do you plan to implement civility and keep an open mind and ear to legitimate concerns of the public?
Sure. Well, you know, as I indicated in my campaign, I think the city council meetings shouldn't be watched for entertainment purposes. They should be watched for being informed. So there's clearly a balance between free speech, and that's there, but there's also the rules of engagement, which is the 5 minutes the council has set up. And that's the key, is the council has the power within our community. There's a bully pulpit of the mayor's office and the input from the staff, but the city council sets the stage on the rules of engagement in the city council meeting. Then it's up to the mayor to enforce those. So my plan is to sit with the council folks, the council members, and just indicate to them what they're looking for. Again, bring my ideas to the table as well, and potentially have some strategies on how to implement the time frame that there is, if someone goes over that time frame, or if there is, sort of yelling from the gallery, which again is not necessarily what we're looking for in Cedar Falls, I think.
Well, it sounds like you have your work cut out for you. That could be a big task, or it could be a small one. Who knows? One of our reporters sat down and looked at a new feature in the new millennium, even though it's 2016, but something that's been on the rise for a while, social media, and how that affected campaigns. So let's take a look at that.
Sure.
Social media is undoubtedly one of the most resourceful outlets when running a campaign. This mayoral election, we saw Facebook was the #1 outlet used among the three. Here's a look how each of the mayoral candidates used social media towards their campaign. Jim Brown had a very active social media campaign. Nearly 500 people liked his Facebook page, where he posted weekly. His re-election video reached 5,300 views on it. He posted frequently reminding people about the election and why it's time to vote Jim Brown. He also utilized a personal website that held more information about his platform. John Cruz chose not to make a separate Facebook page, but rather post to his personal page as well as updates on his website. This gave him an advantage because all 2,075 people who were previously friends with him automatically received all updates through his statuses. He posted almost every other day and often posted much more than election news. He'd wish good luck to UNI sporting teams as well as Cedar Falls high school sporting teams. In addition to that, he utilized a website for the campaign that voters could find information such as biography, reasons to vote Cruz, voting information, and contact information where there were links to his Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Although a few of the candidates tried to break into other social media platforms, it's clear that Facebook was the chosen way to share information and updates. Although likes don't directly turn into votes, it shows that with a strong social media platform comes a strong campaign.
This may be one of the first times in local elections that candidates have put so much effort into online campaigning. We saw this with John Cruz urging and mobilizing his support to rally behind Jim Brown using Facebook. Mr. Brown, it appears that you two have developed a good relationship, and capitalizing on his knowledge may help bridge the challenges in transition. Coincidentally, the city will hold a retirement party for John Cruz on December 7th to celebrate his legacy.
Yes, great relationship. I've known John for about 15 years. We've been Rotarians together in the city and see him from time to time. I appreciated his endorsement, his confidence. There's a political opponent during a campaign, and in his belief, and mine as well, it was a positive campaign. And I think in terms of after that first election, it was quite a compliment to myself and my committee on the campaign that we ran. And then ultimately, if that urged him to retire, I don't know exactly. He had some different reasons in the interviews, but clearly we get along, and I intend to do that into the future.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys will work together really well.
Of course.
And 30 years is a long time as mayor, and so we put together a little video just thanking John Cruz for his time and his efforts that he's put towards the city to make it so great. So we can roll that. This week marks the end of an era. Longtime Mayor John Cruz is handing over the baton to the city after stepping down from his position during a runoff campaign last month. The city and the position of mayor looks much different now compared to what it did when John Cruz stepped into office those many years ago.
Obviously, it's a much smaller city. The job started off as a part-time job. I ran for office in 1971, the summer of '71. And I was elected November 2nd. And the next day I was mayor. There was because I was taking over a position that somebody had resigned from, and they appointed an interim person. And then when that happens, the day after election, the person elected is the mayor, and it was a plurality, not a majority. It was, I had 1,000 votes. There were 4 people, 1,000 votes more than the second place, and there were 4 people running for office. So it was very interesting. I remember walking down the street and looking in a window in the parkade and said, "Who are you kidding? You're not really the mayor." I mean, it's sort of myself, kind of a questioning, because I was 24, a college student, had never had a full-time job. I'd worked part-time at college, substitute teaching, and other jobs on campus. But it was the first job, and actually it was a part-time job. It was 20 hours a week, or roughly, and
one thing that made John Cruz such a good fit for mayor was the simple fact that he did not see this position as a stepping stone on the road to political fame, but rather a final destination that should be handled with care and pride.
When I was first elected, people said, do you have aspirations for higher elective office, state legislature, state senate, or anything else nationally? I said, no, you can see what happens. You can see the work and the people you work with, and then the results. So it's just, it's an exciting thing. Some of the things you do because you have to, the job describes that. You have the bully pulpit of the mayor to be able to call people and say, hey, this is something we want to do. Would you be willing to be part of working to plan our future? So it's just a job that is...
Even though Mayor Cruz is stepping down from the position of mayor, he has no plans of stepping down from the position of husband, father, grandfather, and Cedar Falls citizen.
I'm retiring from the job of being mayor, but I have never been able to just go sit and put your feet in the water and just not do anything. So doing something, I'm not sure this month, and next few months I'll be figuring out what is some next steps, not politics.
As Jim Brown takes over and becomes Mayor Brown, John Cruz is no longer holding the title of mayor, but it may be a title that sticks with him all the same.
was just out in the community last week, and most of them were Good Morning Mayor, and some was Hi John. So it's sort of what they probably were used to. So some will stay with that, some won't. Because my first name is almost Mayor, you know, not John, but
and
some
with
of both.
that, Mayor John Cruz will
and it's
officially
usually-
step down on
usually
January
it's said in a
1st,
positive
and
way.
Jim Brown will take over. And although this is one of the biggest transitions Cedar Falls has seen, Mayor Cruz isn't worried about the city or himself.
When I was campaigning this time, there was a person, his comment to me was, I just want to tell you, Mayor, every day I wake up in Cedar Falls, I'm grateful I wake up in Cedar Falls. So that was a pretty telling comment. Hopefully we collectively as a city can continue to maintain a very high quality of life that's safe and reasonably priced. And it's been very exciting, very challenging and rewarding. A lot of good things have happened because a lot of good people in Cedar Falls are willing to roll up their sleeves, either invest their time, their talents, or their money. And I've enjoyed the ride.
You know, Mr. Brown, it's really incredible to see, you know, how much of an impact being mayor can have on your life. How do you feel that going forward, you know, having those dual roles, being a father, family member, and then mayor, how are you going to balance that? You know, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, great question, Katie. We work off a calendar at home. I've got 2 teenage daughters, and my wife's a teacher, so her schedule's somewhat set, but my girls are all over the place. So yeah, there is certainly a balance for being mayor here with the upcoming challenge of doing so. But it's a challenge no matter what your job is in terms of running things around and balancing that out.
Do you think your kids will go to UNI?
Good question. I don't know. Yes.
Keep the Cedar Falls,
well,
Cedar Falls tradition.
Yeah, you know, I've told the girls they got to live close when they grow up and have families of their own. So I think one's seriously considering UNI, maybe another local one, but they have a little bit of time left. Yeah. Great to be a Panther.
On that side note, while we're talking about your responsibilities, I know you just stepped down from the school board. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Will you miss it? Maybe some of the things you're proud of that you did while you were a member?
Sure. I've been a school board member for 6 years. You know, there were some things I wanted to do in terms of maybe opening up more communication amongst the board members themselves, and it was just, again, 6 years ago, a different picture than it is now. That's improved, I believe, in terms of not just me, but as it evolved with different members coming on board and different insights that have been given. We wanted to implement some technology pieces, and just a couple years ago we were able to implement a one-to-one program within the schools, which I think is moving in that direction nationwide, but I think we're there. Then the bond referendums that have come and gone, we have an issue with growth. We got a great problem. We are growing in Cedar Falls. So there's some challenges there. I'm actually yet later today and later this week going to go speak with Dr. Pattee on the formalities of resigning the school board.
So, as you know, Mayor Cruz was mayor for 30 years, and you are mayor for no time right now. Do you plan on going for 30 years, or how long?
Well, let's see. Yeah, you know, I just realized if my math is right, he was first mayor when I was 3. And then if I go as long as he did, I think I'll be 76. I don't think so. That's just me in terms of other things I'd like to probably do in terms of planning retirement and such. But you know, it's a great legacy that he's leaving behind. And certainly I want to carry that legacy further as well, as long as the voters would elect me in, and myself wanting to do the job. One of my big focuses is business development. So, you know, I'd love to think 5 years from now, if there's various pockets of industry, smart manufacturing, IT, all those sorts of things going on in our industrial parks, and filling the infill areas like the old Hy-Vee. It's been there forever. If that sort of is growing and it's increasing the tax base and it's thriving, it's making our city thrive, then you know that's a good goal for me personally, because that's what I currently do. It's a good goal for me too in terms of thinking the long-term benefits of our city. If my daughters stay here, what better opportunities they have if there's good paying jobs here. And amongst all the other friends and business owners and just normal folks and like myself and other citizens, to enjoy our city, it's a great benefit I think I can bring to the table. That's why I think the voters went along with me in the terms of it being time.
Yeah. So, sitting down with Tom Blanford last night, one of the things he said is that the university is very underrepresented, and it's his ward, so he's very passionate about it. How do you plan on bringing the university into the mix of things and keep them as represented as the rest of the city?
Sure. Well, again, I think the business development could help in those terms. Whether there's partnerships, I know there's the business incubator, and potential internships that can be developed, again, from local companies to help bridge those gaps between folks learning and then folks understanding what's coming before them once they graduate. I would like to talk to the council about having a student representative on the city council. It's been talked about in the past. On the school board, one thing we did is we brought the student leader from Cedar Falls High School, and he just gave a 3 or 4 minute update. So whether the swim team was swimming or they raised enough money during the dance or food drive, it's just great to know. At that time I didn't have anyone, my girls weren't at the high school. Now one's there, so I know more about it. But suffice to say, those other board members didn't. So I think the same sort of emphasis can be played at city council meetings for a quick update from the student leader, to be determined, of course. But that's just a couple different ideas I've had, and Tom and I have talked a little bit about that as well.
Well, it sounds like you've got a good plan hashed out for it, and that's something that we respect as students here.
Absolutely.
So one of the hot box topics that Katie's mentioned and then Drew's mentioned for Public Forum is University Avenue. The roundabouts. Can you just talk a little bit about whether it can be changed at all? I know that there's some unknown there, and just your opinions on the whole project.
Well, as I mentioned in my campaign, I've knocked on about 5,000 doors. I've talked to probably over 1,000 people. And it was basically the hot topic of neighborhoods and doors I spoke to. I've said all along I don't mind roundabouts as a way from getting from point A to point B. I don't like traffic lights and you're in a hurry, at least if you're coasting through 25, 35 miles an hour. That's just me personally. I think the process was really lacking in communication throughout. So that's not necessarily campaign rhetoric, but I'm trying to answer your question. From what I see so far, and what I mentioned in the city forum that we had, the city debate in October, is that we needed a perfect 3-0 run, if you will, for council folks. They have the power, keep in mind. So they right now, if whoever is mayor, well, I guess as I'm mayor January 1st, when that vote comes up, I could veto it all day long. It's veto proof. It's a 5-2, maybe another 6-1 vote. So phase 1 is to be implemented, in my humble opinion. I don't see any other reason or any other way out of that. There's still phase 2 and phase 3. So from that perspective, we have to look at the cost to redesign, the cost to delay, and that's to be seen.
Okay, you've got 15 seconds. What do you want the world to know about you?
Well, I didn't mention my wife is a teacher in Cedar Falls, and my 2 girls, sophomore and 7th grader. I'm thrilled to be in the position I'm in. We did a lot of hard work, and it paid off. It's very rewarding that way. As I joked the other day, I said, now what? No, I got to be mayor. So it was rewarding towards the campaign, and now I'm looking forward. I'm excited in terms of how we can keep Cedar Falls moving forward in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're going to do great. We all think that you're going to do great.
Thank you.
Your campaign all along was it's time, and now it really is time.
It really is time, yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to call you Mayor Brown because I don't like the word elect. It's not necessary for another month.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to everyone in the whole class. We're going to send it back to Carly and Zane to wrap up the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anton, Jim Brown, and all the reporters. Now that the Cruz era has come to an end, it really is time for Mr. Brown to take the reins.
Good luck, thank you for watching, and join us next time on another edition of Town News.